So first, I would just like to acknowledge that the land that we are performing on today is the land of the Wampanoag people. I'm going to start my talk today by telling you a little bit about my own personal story. I was born in the Bronx. By the time I was 16 years old, I was homeless and I had a baby. I was a homeless teenage mom. And I had no job, no education, no foundation. I had a good mom, but she was struggling with her own demons. And my father was in and out of prison and not involved in my life at all. And so it wasn't until many, many years later, as a social worker, now over 20 years, that I started to really notice the impacts of systemic racism. I've always been passionate about racial justice issues. And so that's why I founded an organization centered around racial equity and economic justice. And so that's why I'm here today to talk to you about the racial wealth gap, what it is, how it has impacted us, and what we can all do to help eradicate it. So what is the racial wealth gap? Well, the racial wealth gap is the absolute difference in wealth amongst populations grouped by race or ethnicity. In the US, the racial wealth gap shows that white households have multiple times the wealth than Black households and Latino households. In May of 2020, when George Floyd was murdered, America had become outraged by watching a human life unjustifiably taken without regard right before their eyes. Many people wanted to know what they could do to help support their Black and brown neighbors. And so one idea was to support and patronize businesses owned by people of color. So why is this important? Because of the racial wealth gap. We call this wallet activism. Wallet activism is what challenges you to utilize your financial power in the way that you spend money, in the way that you earn money, and in the way that you save money, so that it aligns with your own personal values. After doing some research on the racial wealth gap, I found that white households are 8 times wealthier than Black households and 5 times wealthier than Latino households. This image is an infographic that was created by the Federal Reserve Bank, and it's an analysis that was conducted in the state of Massachusetts. As you can see, this analysis found that white households had a median net worth of $247,500 a year, and Black households had a median net worth of $8. I said $8. Let that sink in. Racial wealth gap is a direct result of many, many years of harmful policies that were put in place many years ago to exclude Black and brown folks. Things like redlining, gentrification, and loan discrimination are all tied into this, and these are harmful policies that have created barriers for Black and brown communities to be able to survive, never mind build generational wealth. And so there are 5 ways that I bring to you today to help eradicate the racial wealth gap. But first, I want to bring to you also, in 2019, there was a study conducted, and they found that closing the racial wealth gap would add $1.5 trillion back into the US economy. $1.5 trillion. When our community embraces everyone equally and continues to make sure that everyone has equal access, we are fostering innovative ideas and creating sustainable growth. And so 5 ways to eliminate the racial wealth gap. Well, number 1 is going to require substantial national investment back into Black and brown communities. Number 2 requires improving housing policy. Redlining and gentrification still exist today. So we need to remove those barriers and create opportunities for Black and brown communities. Number 3, expand access to entrepreneurship. Loan discrimination still exists today. It is extremely hard for folks of color to receive capital funding. Number 4, support and patronage businesses owned by people of color. And then go and support those businesses regularly. And lastly, number 5, vote for the candidates who have shown a vested interest in things like updating federal guidelines governing minority contracts. Supports the creation of public banks that promote racial equity in lending and racial justice. Lastly, share the message, spread the word. And I leave you with my favorite James Baldwin quote: "Not everything that is faced can be changed, but nothing can be changed until it is faced." I'm Tara Vargas Wallace. Welcome to my TED Talk.